Good afternoon.
Hey Jim, how you doing? Let me come on
Doing
camera
good.
here. There we go.
Great to see you.
Yeah, you too. Let me adjust my camera so you're not staring at my. There we go. That's a little better.
Yeah, so thank you so much for uh, agreeing to present today. We had 20 RSVPs, a pretty good turnout. Expecting folks to join very shortly or a couple minutes early. Are you joining us from the great state of Texas?
I am. I'll actually be in your area next week.
Oh, okay.
So yeah. So I'm Thursday. I fly up to Minneapolis. Are you going? Is that what
I'll
I?
be at Summit.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So I'll be there Thursday through Sunday, and then Sunday I fly straight to Orlando because I'm speaking at ICMI next week. So
Very cool.
yep.
Looks like Carmen is trying to join with audio. I just have a very short presentation and intro. We'll turn it over to you and you can proceed. And we should be good to go. Let's see. I say, Carmen, I see the sign connecting to audio, but Carmen, can you hear us? Yeah, there shouldn't be any waiting room. Everybody should be able to join right away. So we'll get started here in another minute. And Doug, you didn't have any difficulty with the link and joining the Zoom, right?
No, not at all.
Excellent. Yeah, I travel out to Dallas quite a bit and was there over the summer, and it's just so much nicer right now in terms of it being under 100 degrees.
Yeah.
So we're all enjoying the the cooler autumn weather. Welcome, Josh. Um, yeah, it's a great time of year, and a lot of exciting events taking place, as you mentioned earlier. Um,
Yeah, I'll actually be in Orlando, like I said, next week, and then I'll be in the UK the last the first few days of November, last of October, first few days of November, and then back to Orlando for Service Management World. So
yeah, I know you do a lot of traveling, and that sounds like some fun traveling. It's great. London's such a great city, and it's fun when you can travel and smell the roses or enjoy where you're at, as opposed to running to one event after another.
right.
Just, so it's a great way to combine vocation and avocation at the same time. Welcome, Sue.
Hey, how's everybody doing?
Hey Sue,
Hey, Doug, how are you?
good to see you.
Good to see you.
Will
Well,
will I see you in Minnesota the end of this week too?
No,
No.
Thursday's my wedding anniversary, and I couldn't talk my husband into coming along with me. I tried, so I didn't want to leave him on our anniversary weekend. 38 years.
that's
Wow,
awesome.
Yeah.
you got us beat. We're approaching 30. So
Awesome. Okay. Well, as I mentioned earlier, we had 20 RSVPs that may be joining late from other meetings or early lunches, and this event is recorded for the convenience of all. So thank you to all of you who are able to join now, and those that are listening at a future convenient time. Jim Rive, your MC and chapter president here. We're very privileged to have a very celebrated speaker in Doug Raybould speak to us today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. so that we can go over the agenda. Let's see. Here we go. Can everyone see the agenda? Doug, can you see the
Not
agenda?
yet.
Not yet?
No.
No, I can't see it.
Okay, I will share it again. Let's see. Am I
There you
sharing?
go.
Now I can see
There
it.
it is. Okay, so after a few opening remarks and some recognition, Doug will present on customer experience and customer service. What is the difference? As you know, a lot of organizations right now are focused on enhancing and optimizing their customer experience. And in order to do that, there are new metrics, new measurements. We're looking at XLAs as opposed to SLAs, and QStack and some other metrics above and beyond what we're already looking at from an IT service management perspective. And Doug will help us to untangle all the acronyms and terminology and help us navigate this brave new world. Then we'll make sure we allow for 10 minutes of Q&A at the end. And then we do have an exit survey that we ask you to complete. It's the way we do continuous improvement at our HDI Central Florida chapter. And it also gives you an opportunity, if you would like Doug to follow up with you after this event for providing information, engaging with you and your team and your organization. That's something that Doug brings. I've known Doug, I think, since 2016, and he always has just valuable insights and wisdom to share. So without further ado, let me go forward, and I want to thank my local chapter officers for helping to make these events happen. So we have Sue Giliberti, James Moore, and Joe Alexander. We also have great sponsors. In terms of gold sponsors, we've got 1IO and Robert Half. Robert Half is also a national sponsor and sponsor of all our premier awards. Our best service and support analyst, best service and support technician, and other awards. And oh, by the way, there is still time for you to nominate your colleagues, your staff, your management for one of these highly acclaimed HDI awards that's given every year. The due date or the deadline for submission is the 28th of October. So it's a little bit earlier this year than previous years, but it does not take long for you to nominate the best and brightest on your team. And oh, by the way, there's nothing wrong with you nominating yourself if you'd like, because there's some great benefits that go along with consideration as a national finalist. Awards, or many of them are presented at Support World Live coming up. I believe it's May of next year. We also have silver sponsor in Invgate, and want to thank all of our sponsors for their great support, because they make events like this possible. In terms of upcoming events, as many of you know, we have a major conference coming up in November, our Service Management World, at which Doug Raybould will be presenting. He presents at many industry conferences, including the HDI annual conferences, and it will be at Lowe's Sapphire Falls Resort in Orlando. And there is still time to register, and there are great courses that are one being introduced. The XLA practitioner course is brand new, and these other very valuable courses. So there's a lot of great learning, great networking that is available to you. And it is a great experience. I've enjoyed it every time that I have attended. In addition, there are ongoing incentives and discounts for training on demand training, remote training, and classroom training. And if you use the local chapter code that's in this presentation, then you get a discount, as well as we get credit as a chapter. And heartily recommend you taking advantage of the expanded training offered through HDI. And without further ado, I'd like to bring up Doug. He has been recognized, voted 6 times as a top 25 thought leader and customer experience influencer. He's an international speaker, a certified trainer, author, and he also happens to be chairman of the board of our HDI local chapters organization. So overseeing all the chapters across HDI, and brings just a wealth of experience for his many years engaged in optimizing customer experience and managing, overseeing HDI chapters. So I'd like to give a warm Central Florida welcome to Doug Raybould. Welcome, Doug.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate the kind words. Trust me, I don't do the oversight of the chapter network alone. In fact, I probably have the least direct interaction. I do a lot of the strategic piece, while I let those of you on the ground do the hard work, and then I have a whole network of folks at the national level that provide assistance to you, so you can continue to do the good things at the local level. But thank you again.
We appreciate the support.
Yeah. Good. So give me a moment here. I'm going to share my screen so we can get underway. Let me make sure I'm sharing the right one. All right. I believe I got the right one up there.
I can see your screen. All
right. Perfect. Again, I very much appreciate the opportunity to engage with the local chapters. My preference is always to get in front of people, rather than doing it remotely. But I told Jim, if we get good response from this, I will commit to make the awful trip across the Gulf of Mexico to come visit you folks sometime next year and do an in-person presentation. The presentation that I've prepared today that Jim and I agreed on is one that I've done several times in the past. I actually did this originally. It originated as a way that when I was running a large global service desk of about 300 agents in total, it was something that I developed in coordination with them to try to get them to understand that rather than IT just being IT service desk and take a call and move on to the next one, fix the issue, move on to the next one. What I wanted to instill in them was the notion that we could be more than that. We could deliver more than just a transaction. And so it was very incumbent on me, because of the client that I was working with at the time was very focused on customer experience, had won multiple JD Powers awards as having the top experience for their members in the world. And so it was very important to me that we sort of mirrored that approach. So I put together this presentation, have delivered it many times to my agents, as well as several times at different conferences. And most recently, in fact, I delivered it to the Austin Contact Center Alliance right up the road from me here. I'm in San Antonio, Texas. And so without further ado, customer experience and customer service, what's the difference? All right, a little bit about me. We're not going to go through this. The slides are going to be available to you. Jim already gave me more than enough accolades in his introduction, so thank you, Jim. I always like to begin my presentations with the end in mind, and so those of you who have seen me present before, you've probably seen this slide or something very similar to it. I'm very much a believer in the fact that I should lay a foundation, lay a groundwork for you for what you can expect to achieve or learn from this presentation. And so first off, sort of foundationally, what's the difference? Are customer experience and customer service the same thing, or are there differences? What type of metrics apply in these various areas, and what approach should an organization or a team or a department take when it comes to customer service and or customer experience? All right. And so we're going to keep this very, I'm going to ask you folks to open your mics at times. We're going to keep this very open. This is not just me presenting. I would much rather this be a dialogue than a monologue. So the first example I like to talk about is, let's talk about the retail return process. So, who here, and those of you who know how to use your reaction buttons, please use your reaction buttons. Who here has ever had the opportunity to return something at Walmart? Yeah, Carmen. So Carmen, tell me about your Walmart experience. What was it like when you returned something at Walmart?
The line is forever and a day long. That's
Kind
number
of
one.
like what's pictured on the right there.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
For sure. And there's usually one person back there helping everyone.
right. And so you wait through the line, and what's the first question they ask you when you get to the front of the line?
Do you have a receipt?
Do you have a receipt? Right. Did you have your receipt?
Luckily, I did.
Okay, luckily you did. Let's see. I saw Alex also put a thumbs up about returning something. Alex, did you have your receipt when you returned something?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. All right. So some fortunate folks that did. Has anyone not had their receipt when they went to return something at Walmart? Georgette did not have the receipt. So what happened in that case, Georgette?
No, then they want your credit card or debit card or whatever you use to purchase it with, and then they run you through a bunch of questions about whether or not is there anything wrong with it? Is it broke? Blah, blah, blah.
Right. Yep. And so hopefully you have the card, or hopefully you're the one who purchased it. The point is that this is not a frictionless transaction, right? This retail return at Walmart is definitely not frictionless. In essence, by saying, do you have your receipt? They're kind of putting you on the defensive right from the start. They're saying, prove to me that you bought this here. If you sort of take it to that sort of logical extension, that's really kind of what they're saying. Prove to me you bought this here before I'm even going to help you. If by chance you don't have the receipt, then hopefully you've got the card that you paid for it on. God forbid you paid cash, because if you paid cash, there's no trail. And the reality is that Walmart's policy when it comes to returns is it's really done on a case-by-case basis, but in essence, it's done at their discretion. They're not obligated, if you don't have a receipt, to take anything back. If they do take it back without a receipt, they're going to give you the and you can't trace it back to a card. Then what they're going to give you is the lowest price that sold for in the last 30 days on a gift card only. And so, this is not a knock on Walmart. The reality is it's pretty much the same at most places. But Walmart is obviously one of the top retailers in the country. And so, I think this is a very relatable example. It's they make you wait in line. They make it a little bit challenging by putting you on the defensive from the start. They make you prove that you purchased it. And even then, the experience is not that great. When you leave, nobody goes, hey, I can't wait to wait in Walmart's line to return something again. So if we contrast that to another return experience, has anyone here ever shopped at Nordstrom? Are we familiar with Nordstrom? I know you've got them in Central Florida.
Yep, familiar with them, but have not had to return anything there.
All right.
Same here.
That's good. Yeah, Jim.
Yes, great experiences at Nordstrom, but have not yet had to return any merchandise.
All right. So Nordstrom's return is a little bit different. And the Nordstrom policy is you can go to any register. You don't need to go to a return line. You don't need to wait in a line. You can go to any checkout. And here's what's truly interesting. You know, in that previous example we gave, a lot of times if you don't have your receipt, even the frontline person is not then empowered to take a return. They have to call in a manager and say, you know, hey, you know, I need authorization to move forward with this transaction. Nordstrom is exactly the opposite. The frontline staff is empowered to take a return. And if it's not convenient for you to, they'll ship you a prepaid shipping label to send it back. Even if you bought it in the store, didn't buy it online, and it's not convenient for you to return to the store, they'll send you a prepaid shipping label. Now, if like me, you don't even have a printer anymore, because why do we need them? They'll send you a QR code so you can go to your favorite shipping retail outlet and ship it back using the QR code. So they're trying to make this very frictionless, this return. And here's what's truly interesting. It's because they handle returns on a case-by-case basis, similar to if you don't have your receipt when you go to Walmart to make that return. But the difference is, rather than at their discretion based on if they believe you or not, it's based on the ultimate goal of making our customers happy. And here's what's truly interesting. In the policy itself, we say we always do our best to take care of our customers. So this is a very different approach to the way that friction either is increased or is reduced when it comes to returning something. But can we put that to the test? Here's what's really interesting about the Nordstroms. So this goes back to 1975, and some of you may have heard this story in the past, but allow me to shed a little light on it, go beyond just the, you know, probably the Reader's Digest version that you've heard, and give you the full story. Back in 1975, in the state of Alaska, somebody walked into a Nordstrom store and said, I have some snow tires that I want to return. So those of you who are familiar with Nordstrom know that it is really a high-end clothier. They handle some other things, some housewares and some you know, fragrances, things like that. But they don't have an automotive department. This isn't Sears from the 1970s. Nordstrom is very upscale, high-end department store, primarily in the soft goods lines. They don't have an automotive department. So the reality is, the cashier, when the person rolled in 2 snow tires in Anchorage, Alaska, they knew that they hadn't bought them from Nordstrom. But here's what's interesting. Nordstrom had actually acquired a different organization. They had acquired 3 stores from a company named Northern Commercial Company Limited. And Northern Commercial, they were still occupying the same store as Nordstrom now, as the previous Northern Commercial. Northern Commercial did sell tires. And they had been in this location now for almost a year, so they knew this wasn't a recent transaction. But what the cashier did is they said, you know, I know how much a snow tire is. I know that they bought it from this location, from the predecessor company to Nordstrom. I'm going to do the right thing in the best interest of the customer. And so they handed him a $50 bill and took a return on two snow tires that they knew they didn't acquire from Nordstrom, and certainly not within, as most return policies say, the last 30, 60, or 90 days. It was well over a year. So imagine the difference for that customer as they walked out, knowing that Nordstrom didn't sell them those tires. It was just the same, it was the successor company in the same location, but it was well over a year later. So think about what that does. When it comes to that customer experience, the difference between walking out with those snow tires still under your arms versus walking out with a crisp $50 bill. Now, here's another example. All right, I'm going to ask everybody, what do you think I have in my wallet? And let's keep it clean, folks. What do you think I have in my wallet? Come on, I want some guesses.
Pictures of grandchildren.
Pictures of grandchildren. I do, but that's not what I'm getting at. Think in this context, we're talking about experience versus service. Someone else, some guesses, come on.
Maybe like a rewards card.
A rewards card. Okay, you're very close. All right, so in my wallet, I have 2 annual passes. One is to Six Flags Fiesta, Texas, which is literally right up the street from me. I could hop in my car and be there 5 minutes from now if I wanted to. The other is to Walt Disney World in Orlando. Now, I want to talk about the difference between them and the difference in my utilization of them. So who here has ever been to a Six Flags park? I know some of you have been to Six Flags. All right, Jim has. Karen, we haven't heard from Karen. So which Six Flags parks have you been to?
Long time ago, the one in Georgia.
Okay. Six Flags over Georgia. Yep. Jim, which ones have you been to?
Georgia, the Atlanta area, and New Jersey.
Okay. Great Adventure. That's
Yes.
all right. So those of you who have been to a Six Flags park, tell me about what there is to do when you're in line. Jim, what was there for you to do when you were in line for whatever ride you were riding?
It's been quite a few years since I've been there, but it was mainly just socializing with the friends that I went with.
Okay. All right. Yep. Pretty much you're just scooting back and forth through their line, sort of winding around through the habit trail, as I like to call it. And I'm sure Georgia gets pretty hot. The photos that I've posted here are from the Six Flags Fiesta, Texas, which is right up the street from me. And interestingly, it was built in the middle of a quarry, a former limestone quarry. And those of you who are familiar with San Antonio, Texas, know it gets a little warm here. For about 6 months of the year, we're usually in triple digits. So just imagine you're in this park that is surrounded on 3 sides by limestone quarry walls and soaking up 100-degree heat throughout the day and radiating it back into the center of the park. It is like being in a sauna. So while the temperature at the surface may be 100 degrees, it's usually about 115, 120 inside this park. On top of that, the lines, like Jim said, there's not a lot to do. You just kind of shuffle back and forth, and maybe there's some cool graffiti to look at on the walls. And so it's not necessarily the most pleasant atmosphere. The food isn't great. The food is, in fact, there is a Panda Express inside Six Flags Fiesta, Texas, and you will literally pay 3.5 times for the same bowl of food as if you bought it across the street before you went into the park. Exactly the same food, 3.5 times as much. So when I get taken to Six Flags Fiesta, Texas, and I'll put it that way, while I'm the driver, usually it's my kids dragging me to Six Flags Fiesta, Texas. And, for the benefit of carrying that Six Flags theme parks pass that I pay $8 a month for and have for probably the last 5 or 6 years, how many times do you think I go on an annual basis? Let's hear some guesses.
Maybe once.
Any other guesses?
3.
4.
331-4. And remember, it's 5 minutes away,
A couple times a month.
a couple times a month. All right. So Carmen, you win the prize. The reality is I use it about once a year, and usually that's around this time of year because my kids love Halloween, and so they'll drag me off to see the Hallow Scream night. That's about it, because by the time I get out of there, it's crowded, it's hot. Even this time of year, it's still hot because it's surrounded by those quarry walls. I get out of there and I'm like, oh my God, when do I have to go back again? So I'd like to contrast that with the other pass that I carry around. So I know you folks are in Central Florida. So talk to me about what happens when you go to Disney. Let's talk about the ride queues at the attraction queues. There are attractions at Disney. What are the attraction queues like at one of the Disney parks?
They're not bad. And you can schedule your rides. There's different offerings now so that you don't have to wait in line for hours for rides. The parks are immaculately clean. The crew members are all eager to help. They're eager to engage. It's a very positive experience.
Yeah. Anyone else? All right, so here's the thing that I find really cool. There's stuff to do in line. Even if you don't pay the extra to bypass the line, there's stuff to do. And the example that I absolutely love is the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train ride. While it's not a thrill coaster like this one is, what's really cool is when you're in line, you can actually like touch these gems and they light up and they play a musical note. You can spin barrels and they actually project a cartoon image on the ceiling. There's all this stuff that like keeps you engaged. The line itself, the queue itself for that ride actually takes you through the story in a sense, because it starts off in the woods and then it takes you into the mine and you see the dynamite, you see the dwarves, and even when you get off, there's these cottages set up to the right, and inside is Snow White dancing with the dwarves, but outside is the Wicked Queen holding the apple. And so there's all these engaging elements when you're there. And yeah, it gets hot and it gets really humid in Orlando. I've been there plenty of times. But the thing is when I leave that park, when I leave Walt Disney World, I'm not going, oh my God, when do I have to go back? It's, oh my God, I need to plan my trip for when I'm going back next. So it's a whole different sort of approach. And so really what I boil it down to is the real difference between customer service and customer experience is customer service is rooted in activity. It's what we do for the customer. It's the actions that we take. And it's measured in outputs. It's usually in productivity numbers. In contrast, customer experience is rooted in emotion. It's how we make our customers feel about doing business with us. And it's measured, instead of in outputs, in outcomes, which is a big difference. Outcomes are, do I want to continue to do business with these people? Or can I probably get something similar for cheaper? Or could I get better for the same price? They start comparison shopping, if you will. And trust me, this translates not just across customer service or frontline customer support, but also to IT service desk. We are fighting for our lives right now, folks, when it comes to how much can we charge for our services versus what somebody could outsource for or replace, if you are in the outsource world, what they could replace you with. So it's worth noting that it's also entirely possible to provide good customer service. Remember, we're defining customer service as activities, actions. So it's possible to provide good customer service, what they expect, help them achieve their goal, but deliver a poor customer experience. If we're not engaging, if we're not keeping them informed, if we're speaking to ourselves in jargon, or if we instead kind of ignore them and treat the interaction as an intrusion on our time and on our effort. If you hear you can do everything you want. Like if you call in to cancel your newspaper subscription and they cancel it, but they try to, keep you from canceling, like offering you better come on after better come on after better come on, you can achieve the goal of canceling it, but still have a negative experience. It's also possible to provide less than positive experience, again, defined as activity, or service, while delivering a positive experience. So here's an example. If we lack the training tools or the access rights in order to process their request, in order to fulfill their need, and we can't actually provide the action that they've requested from us, but we remain engaged with them, we explain to them the why we can't without laying blame, and then give them assurance that we're going to make sure that we're going to take ownership and make sure that their requirement, that their need is met, we can deliver that positive experience while not even accomplishing the aim that they had for the reason that they reached out to us. Now, here's where the rubber really hits the road. Obviously, what we're trying to achieve is providing that stellar service while also delivering an exceptional experience. In this case, we're giving them the support they need. We're confirming that their issue is resolved. We're inquiring if they have any additional needs. So taking it to that next step, not just meeting their requirement today, but also taking a look at what else do they have beyond this. And meanwhile, we're courteous and respectful. We're keeping them engaged and informed. We're thanking them. And we're also requesting that they complete a survey, not so that we can get 5 stars, but so that we can improve, that we can get better at what we do. That's a whole different context. They're so accustomed to, and I don't know how many of you are active on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. And more I'm seeing these people posting signs where it says, oh, by the way, we would appreciate you giving us a 5-star response. That's awful, because what that is doing is it's diluting the effectiveness of all that voice of customer data that you're collecting. So request that they complete a survey so we can get better. So all this leads us to, what are some of the metrics involved? And there's a whole raft, and let me pull up my laser pointer here. Oh, that is the wrong thing. There we go. So there's this whole raft of, these are probably very familiar to most of us: CSAT and Net Promoter Score. Cost to serve, maybe not so much for those of us in IT service desk, but absolutely for those of us in customer contact centers. And then we're very familiar with these: handle time and first contact resolution. And so these are what I affectionately call the cost center metrics. These are the things that our executive leaders are looking at. What does it cost me to have our frontline support provide a certain level of service and experience? In contrast, there's what above the line falls into what I like to think of as revenue center metrics. And these are things like lifetime value and sentiment analytics. I'm not a big fan of CSAT and NPS being up here, but cost to serve, absolutely. For those of us in IT service desk, know what it costs for a level 1 interaction. Know what it costs for a level 0 interaction. And yes, there is a cost for self-serve, because somebody had to create that artifact, the knowledge artifact that the end user is consuming. They need to keep it updated. There is some cost associated with level 0 support, but know what it costs for level 1, and then know what it costs for level 1.5 or remote desktop support. Know what it costs for level 2 or desk side support, and then know what it costs for it to go to a level 3 engineer. And shift things as much left as you possibly can so that you can reduce that cost to serve. So let's talk about some of these. Who's using CSAT? I'd love to see who's using CSAT in here. Use your reaction buttons if you're using CSAT. All right. Alex is using CSAT. Okay. All right. So, okay. Carmen's also using CSAT. All right. Good to know. All right. So CSAT, for those of you who are using it, know it's measured through surveys. It's very simple to score, because usually it's either, usually it's 1 through 5, or they use something like this, the emoticons that, on a descending scale of happiness. Sometimes it's stars, that sort of thing. This is really sort of the industry standard in a lot of cases. Just CSAT is very simple, very straightforward. Distribution frequency can be adjusted. And you can, through a DSAT, when you get somebody that's dissatisfied, you can actually try to save them. You can try to reach out to them and save that negative interaction by reaching out and just having a conversation. But there's some disadvantages associated with CSAT too, and that is there's scoring biases. I'm one of those people that I am very unlikely to give anything above satisfied. You need to really knock my socks off for me to give you a very satisfied. Same thing on a 5-star scale. I'm very unlikely to give a 5-star unless you really blow me away. And here to me is an even bigger disadvantage. It overlooks those who do not consume your service. So think about the customer who has gotten so disenchanted, so disenfranchised by us that they no longer want to do business with us. They no longer pick up the phone to call us. They will do anything within their power. Google has become their friend. YouTube has become their friend. TikTok has become their friend. Their next door neighbor has become their friend. We are no longer their friend. It overlooks them completely. It tends to focus more on service than experience. It's what did we do, the actions that we took, did we fulfill those action obligations? And it's not really a very effective, reliable measure of sentiment. I'm sure those of us who are using it have heard, yeah, so your CSAT score last month was 92. So why is everybody grabbing me in the hallway and saying, service desk is awful? I hate calling them. If that's happening, I guarantee you 92% of the people in the organization are not as happy with you as you think they are. And so when we talk about it being measured through surveys, here are the outputs. And remember, when we talk about traditional metrics and we talk about productivity metrics, it's measured in outputs, not outcomes. It can drive things like team training. If we see recurring issues that pop up as dissatisfied responses, we can drive some team training. It can drive individual coaching. If we have one person that we see the same thing popping up, it's voice of customer data showing, we can do some individualized coaching. It can also show us some focus items for quality assurance, where we go in and we revise or reweight our scoring matrix. All right, any questions on CSAT? That's sort of the tried and true. Everybody knows CSAT. What about Net Promoter Score? Anybody using NPS? Anyone? Any takers? Does anyone know what NPS is? All right, Georgette knows what NPS is. All right, so NPS is a little bit different. NPS is usually, and they actually have it here 0 through 10. I've also seen it 1 through 11, but typically this is the case, 0 through 11. Anything below 7 is what's called a detractor. They are negative about us. They don't want to deal with us if they can avoid us. 9 and 10 are what are called promoters. They're actually talking about us positively. They're saying, hey, they're awesome. you need to do business with them. And then in the middle, we have what are called passives, or in essence, they're neutral. They don't care one way or the other. What's interesting about NPS, unlike CSAT, is these are thrown out. These aren't even calculated. So your score is based on how many do you have that fall into the promoter versus how many fall into the detractor. That's how NPS works. It too is measured through surveys, focuses on those who are most and least likely to consume the service. Remember, I said it throws out the passives or neutrals. So it's really focusing on what are we doing extremely well to get people to promote us? What are we doing what could we do better in order to get people out of the detractor category? It does focus more on experience than CSAT does. And like CSAT, its distribution frequency can be adjusted to make sure that we're getting it into the hands of people with the frequency that we need to. But similar to CSAT, it also has these scoring biases. Again, myself, to get a 10 from me would be near impossible. When 1 through 5, it's hard to get a 5 out of me. 1 through 10, it's almost impossible to get a 10 out of me. And there are people on the other side too. Unless you absolutely completely drop the ball, call them every name in the book, there are some people who will never give you a 0 or a 1. It overlooks, again, those who do not consume the service. It doesn't go out to everyone. It goes out to those who are contacting us. And it's sometimes used to focus on target groups rather than on the overall experience. So NPS can be sort of used as a focus tool to focus in on specific behaviors, specific elements of the interaction, as opposed to the end-to-end. As I said, it's measured through surveys. Again, it's sort of output driven. It can drive team improvement. Good. It can drive internal marketing campaigns. So when we identify specific elements of the interaction that we see, fall into this detractor category over and over again, or when we find in specific target focus areas that there are things that make it extremely positive experience, we can actually develop some marketing campaigns around that. And it focuses effort with specific customers. All right. Any questions on Net Promoter Score? No questions. All right. So here's one that's sort of emerging, and this is what's called Customer Effort Score. Anybody using CES? No CES lovers. All right. So CES is a little bit different, and really what this is how easy or difficult did we make it for you to achieve your aim as a customer? To what extent do you agree or disagree with the following statement? We made it easy, or you made it easy for me to handle my issues. It goes from strongly disagree to strongly agree. Usually this is used again, it's measured through surveys, and usually it's actually incorporated within a standard CSAT scoring or question matrix. Typically it's tacked on at the end. My preference is it would be the one at the front. I want to know how difficult we made it for them. To me, that's much more important than knowing what your overall satisfaction is. It's more predictive of customer loyalty and purchasing or referral behaviors. So if you get a strongly agree, even if you get an agree, chances are that this customer is going to be much more likely to be a promoter for you. It is highly actionable, because if you start to see things trending from these cold, sort of what I call the cold responses to the hot responses, you can quickly identify what it is that's driving it. And it identifies weaknesses at specific touch points. Some of the disadvantages, again, the scoring bias. Strongly agree, you better make it really easy for Doug to give you a strongly agree. Usually I'll say agree, maybe somewhat agree. Again, you're overlooking those who don't consume your service. And here's one of the things too, it lacks sort of specific details. You can find particularly friction inducing elements along the customer journey, but it doesn't give you specific details because it's very much just focusing on, did we make it easy? Did we make it hard? And that's sort of rooted in the fact that it's not persona based. So as far as some of the outputs it can drive, touch point improvement initiatives, it can help us identify those elements or those touch points along the customer journey that we could do better on. Again, can help us drive internal marketing and focuses on specific customers. All right, so that's the emerging standard. Any questions on CES? All right. So what are some of the commonalities between those three, Net Promoter Score, CSAT, and CES? They have these scoring biases and they overlook those who aren't doing business with us. So how do we overcome those disadvantages? There's two that I'm going to focus on here. The first is I'm calling it the new kid on the block. It's been around for several years now, and it's QStack. It was developed by Ben Brennan. Ben has, and this is this is not a paid endorsement, everyone, just so you know. I tell Ben every time I'm gonna use his company's name in one of these presentations. But Ben developed this methodology, if you will. He now has a company based on it, but he developed the methodology when he was working in Silicon Valley, running a very large global service desk. He's implemented it at several other career stops along his way, and now he actually has a startup company based on this methodology. And QStack is an acronym for quality. When I call or when I send a chat or when I'm seeking support, do I feel that I was given the right responses for the right things? Speed is the S. Do I feel that my needs were met within a time frame that made sense? Or could I have gone on Google and come up with the answer myself quicker? Or could I have gone to YouTube or TikTok? Did the agent who I interacted with have the technical know-how to actually resolve my issue or answer my question? Were they approachable? Or did it seem like an intrusion when I called? And finally, are the lines of communication kept open? Am I kept informed? If the issue isn't resolved, do I have to chase down a response, or am I being kept informed along the way? So it's a really cool approach to how things should be distilled. And when I think about it, it's measured through questionnaires, which is a little bit different than surveys. And the way it's different is you send it to everyone in the organization. And I've underlined it here, even those who do not consume the service. This is such a different approach. And you only do it periodically. You don't do it with every time they interact with us. You actually send it. What Ben recommends is you do it quarterly. It focuses almost entirely on the experience. You ask questions that have meaningful outcomes, and you get 360-degree feedback. You can use it in conjunction with CSAT or NPS to really get the full picture. The only real disadvantages here is that once you set the frequency, you want to maintain it. You don't want it to be sporadic. So quarterly is great. And another disadvantage is the first time, because remember, you're polling people who are no longer, they've given up on us. So one of the things that's critical is you may need to, what I call pay for play, offer some incentives for them to participate. You want to keep it so that it is that it's anonymous. So, maybe you have a numeric value that each participant in the questionnaire is assigned, and then you do a kind of like a lottery drawing by number, and then if they're the number, but you give them something for participating. Not everyone, but Ben said they've thrown out some really nice things, echo dots and things like that, to get people involved. Again, I mentioned it's measured through questionnaires, but and I should have outcomes on this. It identifies gaps that you can't identify through some of the more traditional metrics of CSAT and NPS, and it provides actionable inputs to your quarterly goal setting activity. What was really interesting is Ben mentioned that the first time he did this, they were consistently 94% CSAT, that sort of thing. Everybody thought everything was great. The first time they did QStack, and they tried to make equivalency when it comes to scoring, they came in the 70s. But what they did is they took the outputs from that QStack survey, that first questionnaire, and made them the inputs into their quarterly goal setting, and then drove the things that the customers themselves were telling them were important. And what it does is it then actually allows you to rapidly and iteratively mature your support functions. I know we're running a little short on time, so I'm going to hold questions on that one because I want to touch base on XLA. XLA is very emergent, and it's, when we think of the way we traditionally look at metrics, the things we look at is, are we doing what we said we would? How well are we doing it? And those are SLAs. And they tend to be measured vertically in silos. So looking at things like, how much, how often, how frequently, and they tend to be quantitative measures. And they're focused in each specific area. So they could be employee related, they could be hardware related, they could be application related, because those SLAs all measure things within these vertical silos. But that's not the way really that the customer experiences how they do business with us. And so what's important to them is, what kind of experience are we providing? And what matters to them from a business perspective? So really, XLAs are measured, in contrast, horizontally from end to end, when it goes from silo to silo. That's how they're thinking. Their journey isn't up and down. Their journey is horizontal. And so XLAs are constructed to sort of measure it that way. And so if you think of the two spheres of the brain, SLAs fall into this, sort of process-oriented, output-related, technocentric approach, while XLAs are looking at impact. They're looking at the value of outcomes, and they're looking at the human element to it, as opposed to being technocentric. How can we enable the things that are important to you as a service consumer and to our organization as a business? And so the way that you measure XLAs is they're actually measured through various data points and data sources. So if you think back to this slide back here, we talked about how we're measuring SLAs vertically in these silos. Well, each of those silos has data points like you wouldn't believe. They've got things that we can capture. So we want to go in and we want to construct our XLAs to leverage those various data points. And here's where it gets very different for those of us who are accustomed to working in our silo, if you will, whether that's call center or IT service desk, or even if you're in one of the support functions, is how do I break out of that silo and get this data that's there? It queries whomever you choose, even those who don't consume your service. Remember the importance of that. Again, we're focusing on the entire experience, 360. And it should be used in conjunction with traditional metrics. XLAs should not be standalone. But here's the interesting thing about them. They tend to be somewhat limited in scope. You're usually focusing in on one element of the customer journey when you construct an XLA. And the other thing is they tend to be somewhat ephemeral. They're not permanent. They're not contractual. What they are is they're sort of custom designed based on need and objective at that time. And remember, in business, our world evolves constantly. So you may need to redesign these. You may need to chuck them. And once you achieve the experience that you want, you get rid of them and implement something new, a new XLA based on what your customer is now looking at as the next most important thing. And kind of going back to that QStack model, they're going to tell you on a quarterly basis if you're asking them. As I said, it can be measured through questionnaires. It can also be measured through those data points. And it really should have a laser focus on the outcomes. what's most important to the customer at a given point in time and for the foreseeable future. And it, again, is focused on that steady iterative maturation. So when it comes down to it, what do you want to measure? It all depends. It all depends on what your culture is. What does your customer want? Do they want things that are, these things are easy to change. Behaviors, metrics, those things are easy to change. What's hard to change is the underlying beliefs, values, and assumptions. Those things are invisible. And so ultimately what you want to measure for your organization is what's important to you and what's important to your customer. Does it enable the desired experience that they want to achieve? Are they going to get that Six Flags experience where it's hot, not much to do, overpriced? Or are you going to give them that Disney experience where they're dying to go back? So here's some of the takeaways. I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions. No questions? All right, I guess I'll turn it back to Jim.
That, we've got a couple of minutes left. Last call for questions. Okay. Doug, thank you so much for this enlightening presentation. Clearly, there is a big difference between customer experience and customer satisfaction, and methodologies like QStack and XLAs yield valuable, actionable intelligence for improving internal operations and processes so that you can enhance and optimize customer experience. This was very beneficial and certainly makes me hungry to learn more.
Cool. Thanks, Jim.
All right. So everyone, thank you so much for taking time today to get together. Please complete the short survey that will be popping up, but it's how we continuously improve our programming. And once again, if you would like more information from Doug, please make a note of that and also include your preferred contact information because the surveys is anonymous. Thank you so much. Have a blessed day, and hope to see all of you at the Service Management World or at our next web event, which will probably be in December. We're working on December and 2024 event planning as we speak. So thank you again, and have a wonderful day.